philosophy was armed
resistance.
Anything was right as long as it was armed to get what you want. And Evelyn, all through her life, she always went the legal route. But now in her years of retirement, she's having second thoughts, and she's just wondering if maybe her niece wasn't right, that maybe Assata was right, that it's armed resistance that matters. That's the only way that they're going to get change. The black people are going to get change. So it's an interesting, another element, another level to Assata's story.
No, wait, back to Evelyn for 1 second. Is she doing interviews now? I'd love to get an interview with her.
I'm sorry?
Is Evelyn Williams doing interviews now? I'd love to get an interview with her if you could arrange it.
I don't believe she is, but I don't know.
Okay.
Of course, she's quite old now,
yeah.
So I doubt very seriously she's doing interviews now.
Okay, so then we were talking about young Joanne. Her name wasn't even Chestermore at the time, but young Joanne. What was her name back before she was Chestermore?
She was Joanne Bryan, Bryon, Joanne Deborah Bryan. And eventually, when she did finish her GRD, she went on to a community college there in New York. And that was when she really started coming out and finding herself. All of that pent-up energy and the drive to learn, and the wild hair that she had seemed to come more into focus when she went to this community college. They had black organizations on campus, and she joined them, and she started learning everything about primarily the revolutionaries. Her idea was to go into business, but it turned out she didn't. She only wound up taking one business course, and the rest of the time she would go join all of these groups, these organizations on campus that had to do with building up the black student body and bringing in more black professors, anything that improved the black community on campus. And that was when she eventually, when she graduated from there, she decided she wanted to go to Berkeley out in California and be in that atmosphere. And then she continued studying all the revolutionaries around the world. It didn't matter if it was Chinese or the Cubans or whoever had some sort of societal problem. She wanted to learn about it, and it just absorbed it. That it seemed to define what she wanted to do with her life.
Did you ever find out, especially maybe talking to Evelyn Williams, what it was, what injustice she saw or witnessed or experienced that caused her to be so passionate about this?
Well, that's the confusing thing, because when she was a little girl, Evelyn would take her to museums and the best restaurants in New York, exposing her to all the nicer things in life, because she really thought she was a bright little girl, and she thought she had a lot of promise. But yet, in spite of all, and her mother, Assata's mother, was a primary school teacher, so she had the background. But for some reason, she had this instinct inside of her that wanted her to strike out and to take a different path. And that's what she did. She just devoted her entire life to armed resistance, fighting the authority. And when she got involved with the Black Panthers, for when they first, I don't know if you remember this, but when the Black Panthers first organized, they did a lot of good things for the community. They fed, they provided breakfast for poor school children that couldn't afford it otherwise. They provided legal services for the people that needed it, and medical services. They did a lot of good, but at the same time, they were developing this armed resistance side, which, again, involved a lot of criminal activity. Assata was drawn more to that side than to the helping society. And she got, eventually, the Black Panthers split in half. That was when Cleaver took over the Black Liberation Movement, and Assata got involved with that because that really appealed to her. That was the military arm of the Black Panthers. And she started handling the underground, which is where the people who were either had escaped from prison or they were being sought after for crimes, they would go underground and be protected. So that's how she spent her time.
Right. Because the Black Panthers, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense had also decided that they needed to arm themselves because they were under certain kind of oppressive, the blacks were being, targeted by police and the FBI and the COINTEL program, right? And they needed to defend themselves. So this was her, she saw this, and this was inspired her to get into the more militant defense of her people?
Yes, they had that 10-point program,
right,
which included being able to defend themselves with armed resistance, including against the police or law enforcement. They didn't want to be drafted to the military. That was another one of their points. And that was what really motivated her initially to join the Black Panthers. And then she became disenchanted because she realized, remember, this is a bright gal. She's complicated and she's bright. And she got kind of unhappy with the Black Panthers because she felt that the people that were members, they read like the Red Book, or they read the Revolutionaries. They didn't know their own history, the Black history, and so that turned her off, and that was when she decided to join the Black Liberation Movement. And of course, that was just, like I said, the military arm of the Black Panthers, and they were involved in more criminal activity.
I'm curious now, in your research of doing this, who did you speak to? Did you speak to her contemporaries at the time to get this information and in order to write your book?
Many of them that are still alive. So many of them are already dead,
right.
And certainly the ones that were involved in any of the criminal activities. That there are only a couple that are still alive, and one of them is in Cuba. But the others were contemporaries. They were involved in certain aspects of the Black Panthers or the Black Liberation Movement, and of course they knew her, and so they all have their story. It was interesting because they all had a story or a special memory of Assata. It was, and all of them were very positive. There weren't any negative feelings about Assata, and that continues around the world.
And so, what do you think caused her to become more radicalized and to become more militant and to join the Black Liberation Army rather than stay with the Black Panther Party for self-defense?
She didn't like the fact that the members didn't even know the Black history,
right?
And she also didn't feel like that they were accomplishing anything going by these special giveaway programs that they were trying to establish around the country. She didn't think that was what was going to bring about change that she wanted. She wanted the Black people to be empowered and to have position and have everything that the whites have. She has an interesting story about when she was attending high school before she dropped out. She was the only black student in her class, and it was the high school was in a nice neighborhood. The students that went there were from well-to-do families, and she found herself whenever the girls wanted like a poodle skirt, she wanted a poodle skirt, or if they wanted a Star of David necklace, she wanted a Star of David necklace, or because it was heavily populated by the Jewish from that neighborhood. But yet when she went home, she immediately reverted, and the language and the everything that she associated with as being black took over. So she had kind of a split dichotomy at that time, but then it immediately it was her black heritage that she identified with. When she went to college, she realized that when she realized that that's what she wanted to do, that she wanted to join these clubs and do what she could as far as changing the blacks and elevating them in society, she immediately changed what she called her conch hairstyle, which was the style that white women wore, and she let it go natural. And she started wearing the long African dress because it reflected her roots, her heritage, and that's what she wanted to do. That was who she was.
And for people listening to this today in 2018, I'm still writing 2016 on my checks, but in 2018,
right.
Yeah, 2000. I don't know what happened to 2017. Okay, I'm still writing 2016.
I don't know. I was writing a book. I don't know.
You were writing a book. That's right. Okay,
yeah.
But in 2018, but back in this time in the late 60s, for African American men and women to wear their hair natural in large afros was an extreme behavior. You know, this was extremist, just something as little as that. You know, was just considered right, just like a revolutionary act. You know,
That's right. That's right. And she thrived on that. That's what she wanted to do. That was the whole purpose.
But in your research on this, how much did you look into the COINTEL program, the FBI COINTEL program?
Oh, a lot. They really got into trouble there at the end. J. Edgar Hoover established it, and it was right after there were just this barrage of killings of law enforcement all across the country. And he was determined that he was going to take out all of the leaders of the Black Panther Party or any associated arm of it, and in order to get control, because he was really afraid that the leaders of this party would get such a hold on society that they would never be able to control them. And so whatever means necessary was pretty much the order he gave to his agents. And they did all kinds of things. They would write these anonymous letters to the leaders of one party in it, fear that it was coming from a leader of another party, accusing one of something, and just to incite the two parties against each other. Anything to stir up trouble, anything to get them to kill one another or bring them out in the open. And some of the things weren't that ethical that he was doing, and eventually he got in trouble for it. And it was, I think, 1971 that, it was 1972. It was right after all those killings that they finally had to shut down the control zone and just let the agency operate without that. But even before that, the FBI was working with another agency, and they were targeting Assata. They felt like she was probably the soul of the Black Liberation Movement, that she might even be the leader of it. And so they were really trying to find her.
Right. The COINTEL program also involved a lot of wiretapping and undercover agents infiltrating organizations, disrupting.
Yes.
And there were even some murders. There were murders of activists and leadership. Fred Hampton. These kind of cases where people were framed for crimes that they never committed. And intense surveillance and agitation